Coffee with a Female Founder is where we have honest conversations about everyday business with the women behind it. I'm Amy, your host and founder of Core Studio, a marketing and business consultancy, and The Female Founder, a community-driven learning platform. Each episode will chat over a coffee with a different female founder, diving into their challenges, wins, lessons learned, and the advice they wish they had when starting out. Today's coffee is supplied by Beans Please, a specialty coffee company founded by Penny, another fellow female founder. All of their coffee is ethically sourced, specialty graded, and made out of recyclable material to minimise the waste. You'll be able to find out where you can purchase Beans Please in the show notes. Now, I am so excited to welcome today's guest, Eleanor Bradley, founder of Ellie Stitches, a seamstressing company. Eleanor was also the founder of Wild Strings, a sustainable clothing brand creating handmade dresses from second-hand fabrics. After running that business for 5 years, Eleanor made the tough decision to close her e-commerce shop and transition into a service-based business. In today's episode, we'll hear about her journey, the lessons she's learned in closing her first ever business, and how she's channeling her creativity and experience into building something new. So welcome, Eleanor.
Thank you for having me. This is very exciting.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? So you are my very, very close friend of
Yes.
8 years.
So?
I think so.
Yeah.
I know all about your story, but our listeners do not. So let's start at the very beginning, or almost the very beginning. Leaving uni,
Yes.
you decided not to go into employment
Yes.
and started your first business.
I did, because I am crazy. I had actually, when I finished uni, I had actually had a little bit of experience working within the industry, within the fashion industry, which kind of helped make that decision. I had worked at a fast fashion company as part of my internship, which was sort of included within my degree.
Yeah.
So I did a year there, and it was really brilliant experience. I loved working there. I got so much exposure. I learned so much about myself, about what a company looks like from the inside, what a fashion company looks like from the inside, but also a lot about what I didn't like about the fashion industry, which I think when you're little and you just want to be a fashion designer, you have this like naive view of the world that it's all perfect and fun and glamorous, and really it's exploitation and overproduction and pressure in a not very nice way. So I already had that in the bank kind of before I left uni, which really helped to come out of uni and sort of pushed me not to want to go into that sort of environment and that way of working. And I think, you know, like you said, it was 7 years ago. I think if you were coming out of uni now and you chose not to go into that sort of fast fashion space, there would be other opportunities within the fashion industry to work, which align more with like your personal ethos and your personal way of working, which for me was all about like sustainability, ethical production, and sort of fair treatment of people. And there just wasn't that. There weren't brands saying, this is what we do, come work for us. It was kind of, if you wanted to go into employment, it was either a massive career change right from the start, which I didn't want to do.
A lot of us did.
I don't think that there is a lot of us from that course who are still in fashion.
Handful.
And I think that's the nature of the business. But I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, so it was kind of like either go into fast fashion, change your career, or start a business. And I chose the craziest option of all three of those, naturally.
Absolutely.
And started a fashion business, which was kind of went from nothing to quite a big thing quite quickly.
Absolutely.
Kind of figured it was one of those things where you think, oh, I'll just put some stuff online and see what sells. And then you very quickly realise that it doesn't work like that. If you want it to be sustainable and if you want to make money doing it and build a career and a business out of it, you can't just you can start like that, but you can't just sell stuff one off and not have a brand behind you and not have a platform and not have a voice and not stand up for the things that you want to stand up for and all that kind of thing. So it kind of quickly went from maybe I'll do this to I'll do this.
So I know from our course, because we both did fashion design at BA at University of Central Lancashire, and I know that we didn't really get taught anything about running your own business at all. It was a very creative subject, very hands-on, but there wasn't any practical lessons around if you want to start your own business, this is how you do it. So where did you learn any of that?
On the fly. To be honest, when you look back at that course, I don't think it taught you a lot about working in general. It wasn't just running a business. It didn't really teach you how working in the fashion industry worked either. Like you say, it was a very creative course, and it was all focused around that rather than what your career would have
and
actually
graduate
look
fashion
like.
week and getting us there rather than what happens after.
Yeah, it was about the competition of the course rather than your long-term sort of life goals. I was very lucky that my parents at that stage had been running a business for 5 years. So I'd had a little bit of experience in terms of what that looks like, the work that goes into it, but also that it could be successful. And I think that's the most important thing was I had people from the start that I could look to who were in a totally different sector to me, but had made a success of doing their own thing and running the show. And I think having that and that advice at home and that someone in your corner that knows.
Yeah, so you had the entrepreneurial spirit already kind of in your family.
So, and it makes it feel more accessible because you're watching it happen in real time rather than, you know, if they'd have been in sort of 9-to-5 career jobs, I might not have had the confidence to take the plunge because I wouldn't have maybe been sure, or wouldn't have thought that was possible for me. So I think it was that having that background, and then I think a lot of it was just pure naivety of not really knowing how to run a business and just kind of figuring it all out as I went along. I think I set up the company in the October and planned to launch in the June of the year after. So I'd given myself, 6-8 months to figure out the back end of it. And that was kind of a real dive into what running a business actually looks like. So that I was maybe in a position to run it once it went live for people to buy and shop with. So I think... And that was, you know, loads of Google, loads of YouTube, how to run a business, loads of sort of mini courses and day courses and any kind of networking or business course that I could find, I went on. And I sort of just dived headfirst into that and went from there.
Did you join any business communities at all?
Not really. I don't know if it was where I was at, like, personally, or whether it was just that it wasn't really there. But I didn't find anything like that I thought, I could
go to.
I could go to that. There was an online community that I joined during COVID, which was a couple of years after I set up the business, but that was more once I was in it, and that was more helping once I was on the journey. It wasn't really something that I did when I first started. There were a couple of courses that were like in-person courses where you went for 4 weeks and it was the same people every week. So you kind of got some connections that way and a community that way, but it wasn't like building connections where you would, you know, like with you, where I go, this has happened, what do I do? Or vice versa. It wasn't those kind of friends within business. It was more, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? Transactional.
That makes sense.
Things.
So what was the first thing that you learned about being a business owner? What was like the thing that kind of tipped it from being an idea to this is actually business now?
I don't know if I ever got to that point or have ever got to that point 8 years later. I think after the hype, after the having the launch and the something to build to, I was very lucky because I launched before COVID, so I had like a full in-person launch party where people came and saw my stuff. I'd launched a full collection. I'd built my own website and launched that. So all of that time up until that point was building towards the start. And I think it was after the start that I was like, oh, okay, like this is a business now, like it's got to work. Like, you know, it wasn't a massively successful launch in terms of sales, and it wasn't like an overnight sensation, which now I know is how it works. It rarely happens where you get something that goes 0 to 100 overnight. And often if you do go 0 to 100 overnight, you've put in 8-10 years of work behind that.
You probably had 6 failed businesses before you started this.
Literally. So, you know, you're not getting that with your first business with no funding and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think it was after that, like, hype, launch, really excited. And then it was, okay, now this is a business. Like, it's not just me selling. It's not just me sewing clothes. I've got to sell them. I've got to market them. I've got to make people want to buy them. And I think that's sort of when it changed from being just an idea and something that was fun to I got to make a career out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember you going through this phase of your business where you were deciding between becoming a limited company and being a sole trader.
Yes.
And we made very different decisions when we both started our businesses.
We did.
I am still to this day a sole trader and I don't have a limited company. However, you went down a different path.
Yes.
And talk to us about that journey, because I know there's a lot to it.
Yeah, I think it is one of the things that I would advise any sort of new business owner on from a place of experience. Obviously, I'm not anyone other than someone who's done it themselves. I think I went down limited company because it was what I knew. Like I said, my parents had a limited business, and some of the advice that I got was, you know, you should do that. It detaches you from the business, you know, your personal assets, all that kind of financial stuff. Yeah. And I honestly did kind of think, well, it makes me proper if I do it like that. Yeah. It makes me actually a business. And I don't know if it was a mindset thing and maybe I needed it at the time to be like, no, this is an actual business. But I decided to go down that route, which in the end probably hindered me more than it helped me. But I do think that there is a place for it as your business grows, or if you know that you're going to employ staff from the start, or have a sort of a studio or an actual space, then I definitely think that limited company is more beneficial in that instance.
Absolutely.
But I was basically just a sole trader. I was working from a bedroom and doing it all myself, so I didn't need that legal sort of backing. I just needed to sort of, you know, set it up for myself.
Absolutely.
So I am a sole trader now, but it was a big part of closing down the business before that made it more difficult, was being sort of at the limited company, and it made the harder times harder because there was stuff you still needed to do and pay for that you had to get an accountant to do and all that kind of stuff. And obviously more expensive because it's business rates. Yeah. So when I was financially struggling in that business, it made all of that even more difficult, you know.
And you also said that the money wasn't necessarily your money either.
No, so when you set up as a sole trader, everything that you make, yes, you do put most of it back into the business anyway, because that's the nature of it. Of course. But it's the businesses, whereas it's easy, like, so it wasn't as easy to just take money out of it when I needed it, or, you know, it wasn't as easy to, like, had to actually pay myself if I was going to pay myself and all that kind of stuff. It just made it a bit more difficult. But I do think in some ways it kind of helped that financially. keeping them separate, because then if you do set up as sole trader, I'd recommend having just a separate sole trader, separate bank account, and then you pay yourself out of that rather than putting your shopping and all that kind of stuff on that card. Because it did help me keep that stuff separate, because there were probably times that I would have dipped into that if I could, but I knew that it wouldn't help me in the long run, so I never did. So I think it's sort of helped me keep the two things separate now, even though in hindsight it's probably something that I wouldn't have made the same choice again, if that makes sense. Makes sense.
Absolutely. So you've mentioned closing Wild Strings.
Yes.
So talk to me a bit about the lead up to that, because I know that it was a really big struggle. Yeah. And it's your first business baby, and it's always difficult to close something. But talk to me about that. Why did you come to that decision?
I think before we delve into that, I do want to say that I absolutely loved running that business.
Yes, you did.
And it taught me so much about myself, about what I was capable of, about the life that I wanted, about what was important to me. You know, it gave me so much. And there were times that it was really successful. There were things that I got to do because I ran that business that I would never have got the opportunity to do otherwise. So all of those things did make it harder to come to that decision to close the business. And I think it was a journey. It didn't happen overnight. Like, as you say, you sort of get there at that time. And it was probably the last year or so that it really got to the point where it was like, oh, I don't know whether this is long term what's right.
Yeah.
I, like you said, had a very emotional attachment to it because it was my first baby. It was the thing that I'd dived into head first, and there was a lot of me that didn't want to admit that I'd failed and that it had reached the end of its life. So I think that I probably dragged it out for maybe 6 months, a year more than I would have done if I'd have. But you've kind of got to go through that.
Absolutely. There's so many more lessons to be learnt as well during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the big lessons I learned is that it's okay for it to be the end. I had fallen out of love with what I'd created at the end of the day. I love the sewing and the creating and the turning flat pieces of fabric into 3D garments. Like, that's the bit I adore doing. Yeah. And that's the bit that lights me up. And in the last sort of year and a half, I was doing less and less of that and more of the marketing and the sales and the pitching and all of that stuff you need to do to run a successful business. Yeah. But when you're in a position where you can't hire, or you don't feel like you can hire, or you do have it all on yourself, something's got to give. And it was always the sewing that would give, because I'd already have products to sell, and if they weren't selling, then there's no point making any more. So it was kind of figuring out that was the bit that I loved and that I wasn't getting to do that, coupled with the freelance seamstressing that I was doing on the side to help the business survive, growing and growing and growing and growing, and actually finding myself neglecting the brand to do sewing, to do freelance sewing.
It's almost a natural progression.
So it was a natural a natural progression in a lot of ways. And then it was just sort of sitting down with myself and
having tough conversations
and a few failed launches and tears and all that kind of stuff, and going, actually, like, this might not have to be the end. Like, I get to choose that this is the end.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the important thing, is that I know that I chose to do that, to give myself a better chance of being successful in something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that running an e-commerce business, whilst you're also pushing that sustainability narrative, you really struggled with that balance.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And I think as well, when you're running a brand like that, you feel a bit like you have to be the perfect embodiment of your brand all the time.
Yeah.
So I was finding it hard to show up from a place of sort of authenticity, because I wasn't 100% living the values of my brand.
Hiding your face when you're walking into Primark.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? Never catch me dead in there. Anyway, but I think it stopped me doing a lot of things that I would like to do and showing up in a lot of ways that I wanted to do, because I was like, I'm not this perfect person. I'm not like, and maybe now in hindsight, it's because I'd built the brand too perfectly, and the brand itself needed more space to be a little bit less 100% all in, which, you know, you live and you learn. But I think that it was hard for me on one side to be like, don't buy stuff you don't need, and then be like, buy this dress because you really need it and I really need you to need it.
So it was difficult.
It was sort of almost felt like a daily conflict of interest, which again makes it hard to show up, and it's hard to sell things if you're not loving what you're selling and why you're selling it.
And I know that you were the absolute queen of Instagram in your peak times of running the business. So for some reason now, whenever you own a business, you have to all of a sudden become an influencer. And you were religiously on your stories on Instagram, showing up, talking to camera, and it was so great. But because I'm your friend and I know the behind the scenes, you hated every second of it.
You don't know me.
What was that like?
It was hard. It was that daily pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, which in some ways is good because you have a purpose to do it. It makes you do things that you wouldn't otherwise do. But it did at times make me feel like I had, again, that inauthenticity. I don't even know if that's a word, but
we'll make it
a word. And I think it was really beneficial to the business. And it was really, really beneficial to me now, because there's still people on my Instagram that are here from that time that feel like they know me because of how I showed up and how I spoke and all of that kind of thing. But I think it's nice to not have the pressure to do it every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about how you've transitioned from owning a product-based business, e-com, now going into your service-based business. So how was that transition?
It was really organic, to be honest. In a lot of ways, it was picking up a couple of clients who I had consistent work from and knowing that I would have consistent work from them, and then kind of building it from there, using them as a launch pad to actually lean into the service and figure out what I wanted to provide and who I wanted to work with, what I wanted that to look like. So it was really, really natural, and it has given me a lot of space to not be as online, which I love. Yeah. Because that was one of the things that I think was really irritating. Well, not irritating, draining. I think I found it quite draining, especially at the end when you're trying to show up in a failing business that you know is failing and you think everyone else knows is failing. And then you still got to stand there every day and be like, I'm doing great.
Absolutely.
So it gave me that space to actually, and I actually took nearly a whole year off any kind of social media and built the Seamstress in brand almost without it. Yeah. Which I love, because it now means I can go back into that space without having the pressure to have to get clients off it and have to get sales off it.
It's just a tool. It's not a necessity anymore.
100%. And I do think that that's something to bear in mind, is you don't have to have that to make a business work. Like, you don't have to have socials, and you don't have to have everything, and you don't have to show up on everything to make something successful and work for you.
I think that's the point in digital marketing, though, isn't it? You don't have to have every single platform just because every single platform is available to you. Yeah. It depends where your target market is. Yeah. So if you're talking to, I don't want to stereotype, but like 60 plus, maybe TikTok isn't the place for you. 100%. So you've got to pick what works best for you and best for your business as well.
And I think it's okay to try different things and see what works and what doesn't work. And there might be times where one social media platform does really well for you, And again, it's kind of okay to let that die if it's not serving you,
absolutely.
and move on to something else. Like you don't have to keep things up the same all the time. And I think that there's also space for connecting with people, talking to people, building connections that way, you know, using digital marketing and social media to build connections and relationships with people.
Yeah.
And not just plug yourself all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the best way to gain clients as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is having that almost working friendship.
Yeah. And I think it's, you know, it's a lot like, if you treat it more like in-person networking, which isn't as much of a thing now, and is a lot more transactional now than it used to be. But when it sort of first started building up, it was about connecting with people and connecting with people that you could help and could help you and fall back on them, and they could fall back on you. And I think that if you sort of treat social media like that, you're getting more out of it than if you are just expecting likes and adoration to come your way without sort of building anything outwards, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. What do you think now is the kind of biggest adaptation that you've had to make from owning a product-based business to now owning a service-based business? Like, does that feel very different to you and how you speak to your clients and how you kind of go about your day-to-day life and things?
Yeah, I think it does. I think I'm a lot more structured now because I'm actually providing a service and doing a service. So I have a proper structure for how my days look, how my week looks, and all that kind of thing. But also it's kind of, again, going back to that relationships with customers, e-commerce is very transactional. Someone buys a dress and I get excited, but to them it's just another purchase. Whereas now, you know, I have production clients where I'm working with them week in, week out to make their things, their products that they sell on. Or I'm working with a client to alter her wedding dress or a bridesmaid dresses, or I'm, you know, working with someone to adapt something so that they can wear it again. And it's more of a process and more of a relationship than I want you to buy this, you buy this, here you go. Yeah. You know, it's more about, and I think it's like you were saying with the talking on Instagram and all that kind of thing, but more in real life. It's that people knowing me and trusting me rather than the brand's name, rather than what the brand stands for. Yeah. It's a lot more about my zone of genius as a seamstress and my area of expertise, and me trusting myself that I am that person that can help them do that. So it's almost sort of a bit more self-indulgent, which sounds really vain, but it's more about what I can do and provide and how I can help and make my little bit of world better, rather than trying to create a brand that does all those things. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So I feel like my world's maybe got a little bit smaller, but it's a lot more authentic and it's a lot closer to what I actually want to put out in my bit of that, if that makes sense.
That's a lot more, what's the word, like fulfilling.
Yeah, it feels so much more fulfilling. Yeah. It does. And I think it feels a lot less lonely. I think e-commerce especially can feel quite lonely when you're running the whole thing by yourself and you're doing it all by yourself. You know, you're either in the digital or you're in the product, and unless you've got other members of the team, you've not got anyone really who's in it with you day to day. Whereas now I'm talking to customers, I'm talking to clients, I'm, you know, going into places to sew with them, all that kind of thing. So I have a more fulfilled life as well as a more fulfilled business. Yeah. Because I'm actually giving myself things that fill my cup in my work, rather than just sort of being one lonely girl banging on a glass window going, buy from me.
Absolutely. You talk about your like world getting a little bit smaller, and I know whenever someone starts a business or you're kind of running it and trying to scale it, you always talk about what's your 5-year plan, like where do you want the business to be and things like that. How does that feel different for you now? Because I know in the beginning you were very much like, this is what I want, these are my goals, and like, is that
100%.
different now?
Yeah, I rarely set goals, which I know you're going to hate.
Yeah, I'm such a goal setter.
The goal and orientated person in the room is going to hate that. I try to be a bit more let it go, let it be. And I think that being self-employed does that to you in the long run anyway, because it's never certain, it's never the same week to week, and you just kind of learn to roll with it. But I think that I don't set goals. I don't really do a lot of businessy stuff anymore. I try and keep that kind of stuff to a bare minimum, like the admin, the marketing. I don't have a website anymore. All that kind of stuff. And I think it feels freer. And I don't know if it's because, like you say, I did go into Wild Strings with the, I need to do everything, I need to tick every box, this is what's going to make it great. And realising that you've got to pick what works for you. So there are bits of it that I still do, like I still journal. There's sort of admin processes that I put in place for that business that I still use today. But it's more picking the bits that work for me rather than feeling like I have to tick every box. And I hate 5-year plans. I just hate them. I just don't care. I don't know. I might not still be here in 5 years. Let me live my life. I think it's a great tool if you are someone who wants to grow and scale. I think you've got to have that long-term plan if you want to scale a business and be a business that has a big world. But for me, I think part of running Wild Strings was learning that I don't want a big world. I'm quite happy if this career gives me an income and the flexibility and the support that I want my life to be and look like, and gives me a platform to speak about things that are important to me. If it does all that, it doesn't matter about the rest of it. So I kind of don't have any plan. I do set sort of like at the start of the year, I'll set some intentions. I'll be like, it'd be nice if I did this year. It'd be nice if I did that this year. Or I'll have a little bit of a reset if I'm sort of like losing focus or I'm losing sight of something, and be like, no, actually, I need to be knuckling down. I need to be reaching out more, or I need to find some new leads, or, you know, I can feel myself slipping. And I think they're all tools that I've picked up from doing all of those things and those processes. I have picked up the tools to know when I'm slipping or when I'm floating or when I'm not pushing myself. And I can sort of pull myself back from that. But it's all a lot more intuitive now. Rather than sitting down and ticking a box and writing a weekly plan and writing a to-do list. And
I think that is important, though, for young women who are starting out their businesses. You don't have to scale.
No.
You don't have to be this global business or have 5 members in a team within a year. Or you can just have a business and be a female founder on your own.
100%.
And have a good income that like you're able to survive off. And that's it. You don't have to be a
thrive off. Like,
exactly.
It's not, you don't have to be. Success looks different to everyone. And I think that especially when you start a business and you go into networking and you go into places where other people are starting other businesses or teaching you how to run a business, they're all looking at you, expecting you to grow and scale. So a lot of what they teach you is about how to be successful. But being successful looks different to everyone. You know, I make really good money doing what I do. I have the flexibility to take a day off when I want, have a holiday when I want. You know, I have the flexibility to work from home, to go out for coffee when I want. And that's enough for me. Like that's success. I'm successful. I think of myself as successful most of the time. You know, when I look at it and think about it, and that's enough. You don't have to have all the bells and whistles to be successful and be proud of being successful. I think that just because everyone else in the room wants to scale, it's okay for you to go, oh, I'm not sure that's for me.
Absolutely.
You know, you don't have to
have your own mind, especially in the noise that is TikTok and everyone's running £1 million business all of a sudden, and sometimes it's just not reality, and it's not your reality. It doesn't have to be.
And I think that sometimes you get you can get lulled into this false sense of, I need to want that because that's what everybody else wants.
Yeah.
And I think that I never really wanted that. And I myself, again, naivety, not knowing what I was doing, thought that I wanted that. And it's really only when I got deep into it, I was like, well, actually, I don't. I want to be able to afford to buy a house with my partner. I want to be able to afford to get married and have the wedding that I want. I want to be able to afford to travel and go see the world and have the flexibility to do that. That's all. That's, if I do that for the rest of my life, I'll have been happy. And I think that I can trust myself when I say that now. But maybe 5 years ago or 8 years ago when I was starting out, I couldn't, because I didn't know what I wanted in myself enough to know that it was okay to not care when people asked what your 5-year plan was.
You were also incredibly young as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Straight out of uni with...
Yeah, I think 2019, 20.
Yeah, 2019.
20.
Yeah. 20. Crazy.
2021.
Yeah, amazing. So to kind of close all this off, I'm going to ask the same question to everyone. Okay. And that's, what's one piece of advice that you would give now to someone that's just starting out?
I'm going to have two, because I'm your first guest and you love me.
Absolutely. You can have two. I'll let you have two.
The first one is, sometimes you just got to do it. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Don't wait for every single tick box to be ticked. Just put it out there, start talking about it, start telling people about it. Like, it doesn't have to be your perfect website, your perfect product, your perfect etc. to go for it. Sometimes you just got to go for it before you're ready for it to happen.
Launch and perfect later.
Yes,
basically.
yeah. And I think that you don't know perfect until you've made contact with the person who's going to use it.
Yeah.
You know, you can build a perfect product and be like, yes, this is perfect. And everyone who buys it goes, that doesn't fit. Or I can't wear this to hike, which you've said I can. Or, you know, but until you've had that experience, you don't know it's perfect anyway. So what's the point in striving for your own idea of it? And the other thing, which obviously throws back to what we've discussed, but don't be afraid for it to be the end of something or for it to change or develop. I think you've got to be quite flexible with what you hold on to and what you let go of. Yeah. And it's okay if what you started out wanting to do isn't what ends up happening or what you end up doing by the end of it. Yeah.
Isn't there a story of, you know, the Stanley Cups that they actually launched, and their target market was builders and like construction workers until the TikTok girlies got hold of it, and their entire brand image, target audience,
just totally
everything
changed.
just completely changed. And now they're fully
before
thriving.
that, they were, you know, a flask company for workers and hikers, and you know, they were a niche brand that allowed themselves to lean into what customers were using their product
and
for,
adapt their entire business, really.
Adapt him for it.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't mean that what they were doing before wasn't good or right. It was just listening to what was happening now and what was changing. And I think, you know, that kind of ensues both those points, doesn't it? You know, it wasn't perfect because the person that was using it was different to what they'd thought, and they weren't afraid to like sort of adapt and lean into it.
And in a way, they had to kind of close that kind of side of the business to what they thought it was, and then open up this entirely new market. Yeah, and now they're really successful.
But if you think about, they can do that, an established business can do that. You can definitely do it when you're starting out. Or, absolutely. You know, I think you think your world is so much bigger than it is when you start out. And really, it's the best time to sort of figure out what works and change things and adapt things, because you've got the least amount of people looking at you that you probably ever will if you are, if you're successful and you grow.
No one's going to notice whether you change fonts.
No. And I think that there's this big thing where we have to, every time something changes, do a big announcement. You don't have to.
Announcement culture. I feel like
you
that's
don't
an
have
entirely
to. It really
other
doesn't
podcast.
matter if you change your colour palette. You can just change it, unless it's a really full rebrand and it's a totally new thing that you feel like you need to reintroduce to your customer. It really doesn't. No one's gonna.
No, you don't have to get board approval, and you don't have to get teams to do the work,
you don't have to get customer approval.
No, you can just do it.
You can just do it. You don't need admirers to tell you whether something's the right decision or not. You've changed it because you think that it is. That's enough.
Yeah,
you don't have, every little thing doesn't need to be announced on the internet.
No. Yeah, please stop announcing
Please
things.
stop.
Please stop finding things to announce.
Please stop. Save it for weddings and babies and things.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Your story is inspirational, and I'm not just saying that because I have a bias. But it's just really important to see almost business in a different way, that women can have a business that fulfills their life rather than them having to fit into what they think being a business owner looks like. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coffee with a Female Founder is hosted by me, Amy Cole. If you're interested in finding out more about The Female Founder, sign up to the waitlist at www.thefemalefounder.co.uk. The podcast is recorded and produced by KUPOD Productions in Oldham, Greater Manchester. For more information, visit KUPOD.co.uk. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you give us a like, share and follow. If you would like to feature as a guest, please email amy@thefemalefounder.co.uk.